Hi everyone, so in this workshop we are going to be applying everything we worked on in the first 3 workshops to en dedans pirouettes. So en dedans pirouettes are probably one of my favorite types of turns to do. They're a lot of fun. They're pretty similar to normal pirouettes from fourth en dehors, but you're just now spinning the other way. So you just have to really focus on how you're holding your turnout and where you're getting your force from. So the position's almost just reversed in a sense. So en dedans pirouettes, there's a couple different ways you can get into the actual en dedans pirouette, depending on if you're just doing them in class or if you're doing them in a variation. And for girls, they're actually pretty common in variations. Most variations, you're going to do it at some point. Guys too, but mainly for girls in variations, it seems to be pretty common. And of course, you're always working on them in class. But the most common preparation, the most basic classical technique preparation, I would say, is you're going to start in a fourth position like this, hips more onto that quasi corner, not so en face, crossing that leg behind you. And if my right leg is front, I'm going to have that right arm in front of me and my left arm out in second position. So this arm in first, this arm in second position. And this is kind of similar to turns from fifth position where you can't wind up. So we'll dive into that deeper, but that's kind of a similar thing if you followed along to that workshop from fifth. You have to think about not getting your force from twisting. So we'll talk about that in a second. Just want to show you a couple other preparations. So another one is mainly if you're doing it in a variation, or sometimes if you're doing a fun combination from the corner, you'll usually do kind of like a tombe into the turn. So you can either start from just a still fourth position, or sometimes we do like a tombe into the turn, which usually is a little bit easier because you can get some more momentum from that and you're not thinking about winding up so much. So you can think of just going into it from that plie. I prefer to do the tombe usually, and usually in variations you will, a lot of the times, or at least a lot of the variations I've done, the en dedans has always been facing either away from the mirror or the audience, whatever you're considering. So it's usually towards like this back corner here. And I honestly prefer to not spot either the audience or the mirror. I don't know why. I feel like it's just easier to kind of spot that corner. And it kind of helps me keep my position. So one of the most common things in en dedans pirouettes is we go towards that working leg or towards that passe leg. So we lose that side. So if my left leg is up in passe, what usually happens when we go into that en dedans pirouette is this side gets weak and it starts dropping towards that passe. If my left leg is up in passe, my right shoulder is coming up, my left shoulder is dropping down, and now this is all getting compressed here. That's going to throw you off of your position completely because you're spinning to the right. Your right leg is your supporting leg, and if you start going this way, you're going to start now spinning away off your leg, and it's just going to totally throw off that position. So especially in en dedans pirouettes, really feel whichever leg is your supporting leg, feel that same shoulder pulling down so you're nice and even. Really good tip, film yourself, because what I feel when I do en dedans pirouettes, I will feel like I am totally square, but then I will watch video or I'll get a correction from a teacher or a friend, and they'll say my left shoulder is dipping towards that passe. And then I fix it and it feels like I'm spinning like this, but I'm actually straight. So it's one of those things where it might feel like you're now going too much the other way, but you're actually straight now. It's just because you're so used to dipping towards that passe leg that you just now have to get that muscle memory correcting to where your shoulders are even. So just really important, obviously in any turn, but especially in en dedans turns, feel the even shoulders, everything square through the torso and hips. Nothing is dipping one way or the other, but especially not dipping towards that passe. That's the most common. Of course, sometimes we'll dip away, but most common I see is we dip here and then we start losing that en dedans. Another thing is with en dedans, especially if you're doing that tombe prep into it, is that we pull back. So you don't want to do, if you're doing the tombe, even if you're going from fourth position, you have to make sure you pull that chest all the way on top of that leg. So you don't want to hold that chest back. Obviously make sure you're keeping those shoulders back like we talked about in the prior workshops. But especially if you're doing that tombe prep into it, make sure you tombe and you press all the way forward. For now, almost feel like you're going too far forward, kind of like how I just did. It's always better to be going more forward because you can always take back. You don't want to be falling back. One, your legs will come out from under you. Two, it's harder to kind of pull yourself back on your leg in that turn. So just always feel like you're going more forward, especially, it's mainly from that chest. Keep that rib cage closed. Feel that chest kind of pulling you on your leg. So we don't want to be back here. We want to be here.